Hi everyone, this is Stacy in Japan and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about isolation in Japan and more specifically coping with isolation in Japan. Isolation is very real in Japan and there's no other way to pretty it up, as we like to say. It is a real thing, and unless we acknowledge it, we will never be able to truly address it. Now, I've been living in Japan for the past 4 years and 1 month, actually. And through my own experiences, I have come to realize how isolation becomes a very real part of your life, even when you kind of don't realize that it is happening and worsening over time. And so I came up with some tips for coping with isolation in Japan. I think I have about 11 tips, which I may expound on each a little bit without trying to make the video too long. So the first thing I have on my list, which may not necessarily be the number one thing, I really just wrote these down as they came to me. All right, so most persons who are coming to Japan or going to another country to teach English, you are usually in a group with other persons for training. I don't know the size of your group possibly, but my group was pretty big. And so one of the first things I suggest is to connect with persons in your training group before coming to Japan. There is that period after training where you have to be preparing things, and it is a very hectic period actually, that period before you come to Japan. But after you've heard that, hey, you've been successful and you will be going to Japan, that's the time when you need to connect with other persons who were successful during that training and interview process and try and keep in touch with them there. Now, of course, connecting with people won't necessarily mean that you are going to automatically become buddies. All right? But I'll talk some more about that. Now, number 2 on my list is, where possible, travel with at least one other person to Japan or to whichever country you're going to. And it would be ideal if it is one of these persons that you connected with previously at training. What does this mean? It does mean you have to make an effort to collaborate with the person in terms of your itinerary. Yes, itinerary. And the thing is, let me back up a little bit. You know, there are persons who are introverted and they like to do things by themselves and all of that. And that is very normal. And in your context of your home country, it seems like the natural thing for you to do. You're introverted, but you don't feel isolated because you choose to be alone or by yourself. You can choose it, and you can choose to come out of that zone, as it were, when you have a desire to connect and to relate with people. Now, that's in the Jamaican or your home country setting. When you step out of that into a foreign country, this isolation is more or less thrust upon you, and so it is a little bit different than what you would experience from your home country. And so a lot of effort is required on your part as the individual to try to prevent isolation from being too forceful in your life when you are living abroad. All right, now, number 3 on my list is to maintain connection with those you trained or traveled with where possible. So you have left Jamaica, you are now in Japan, you're in China, you're in Korea, you are in some part of Europe or the Middle East. You are now there and things are crazy. Of course things are crazy. You're in a foreign country, you know nothing What if you don't know the language, especially if you don't know the language? No amount of training or debriefing during the training process can actually prepare you for the culture shock, the time zone difference, the jet lag, and everything that will bombard you immediately once, within that first week of you being in a new country. So it is very helpful to maintain connection with those you trained with or traveled with to that new country where possible. And then, of course, the other thing you have to deal with is the time zone difference. So while you were in your home country, and it would have been so easy to just link your friend and do this with somebody who you're closer with in your home country, when you come to Japan, it's not so easy. You're awake and they're asleep, and you want to talk, and it's almost like you have to set an appointment or try and get in their schedule or let them know when you are free, and so it kind of contradicts our natural flow and what we are used to once we enter a foreign country. All right, now next on my list is to join a group of like-minded or culturally relevant individuals. Now, there are at least 2 Jamaican groups that I know. One is Jamaicans in Japan Association, and the other one is Jamaicans Living in Japan. Now, of course, each country may very well have their own group, and these are Facebook groups. So each country's or we could say area may possibly have their own group. I don't know if there's a Caribbean connection somewhere there. I've never checked, but this will be very useful for you. And ideally, if you can join these groups before you leave your home country, that will help to give you some information to arm and equip you before you actually enter into this new overwhelming space, right? So try and join a group, whether it's a Jamaican group if you're Jamaican, an expat group. There are tons of groups on Facebook, or wherever else you can find these resources. Check on YouTube, find out, how to get this information that you need before you come to Japan, so you can try and prepare yourself mentally more so than physically. Right? And this will also provide a space to offer some support. And it's going to be very difficult, let me tell you, if you're not somebody who is into technology or into being online all the time. This is what happens when you're in Japan or in another country, any foreign country. Online is where you find yourself trying to connect with people, and it's a new learning process. People are talking now about the new normal with COVID. This is what happens once you go to a foreign country, COVID or no COVID. It's been my reality, and it will be your reality if you decide to embark on this journey. All right, now, next on my list, and I don't know if it's number 4 or number 5, but you have to deliberately establish talk time, and even better, FaceTime with your family or friends back in your home country where possible. Of course, not everybody has family or close friends, so this might not be for you. But you have to be deliberate about establishing something, some kind of connection, right? If it's even one person, and I'm going to be getting to that in the other points that I have. But it has to be a deliberate effort on your part. Of course, the first couple of months, you're sending text messages and everything is fine, and you're in this new place and you're not feeling bombarded by anything necessarily, because your mind is now trying to readjust and realign to this new place. So you're not thinking about things about being alone, not seeing your friends, not seeing your family. You're not thinking about those things right away. unless you are probably in a very close relationship or have close connections with your family and so on. But you're not gonna feel it immediately because you're excited and there's this honeymoon period, where you're learning about this new country and exploring and that excitement, but it's going to die down and you want to establish those connections and like a pattern, of talking and communicating with persons. When you're in your home country, it's almost like automatic. Usually, maybe you go to church or on a meetup at a restaurant or somewhere, and that is usually your norm and your pattern and your regular habit. When you come here to Japan or wherever you go, you have to recultivate a new habit. So be very mindful of that, right? Okay, now in my first year when I came here, don't know the language, don't know nothing at all, right? I joined an international society, which was through my city, and that is the next point on my list. Join an international society in your city or your ward through your local community center or any other kind of friendship society that they may have available to foreigners. When you do this, you often meet upon a lot of foreigners who are in the same position as you are, and normally in these spaces they have learning opportunities for the language of that country. It's a great way to connect with people who understand where you are at that particular point in time. Sometimes there are some English speakers, but a lot of the times they are from vastly different countries as well, probably other Asian countries, Middle Eastern countries, and their first language is not English. Their second language might not even be English. English might be their third language, so, but it is still a great opportunity to connect with people who are not Japanese or not from whatever country you are in, who understand where you are at that particular time. And this kind of society and environment usually provides opportunities for a lot of cultural exchange, right? So yes, you're in Japan, yes, you're in China or wherever, you get the opportunity to learn about other cultures as well. Maybe this video is going to be a little bit longer than I anticipated, and I don't want you to miss a beat. Okay, so now next on my list is to find or develop a hobby of something that interests you or brings you satisfaction. If you not have no hobby, if you not have nothing where you like to do, you try find something where you like to do, whether it's technology or something hands-on. Find something, learn something new. You're going to need it. This is not just true for now during COVID-19, but it is true for when you're moving to another country. I have recently taken up biking, riding a bicycle, and it has been amazing. Also jogging, and it has been amazing. You don't need to do it with nobody. You can do it by yourself and get the benefits and reward of that. Remember, we're talking about coping mechanisms for the isolation that you will inevitably feel in a foreign country. All right. The next thing on my list is to try to connect with at least one English speaking individual. And I use the word connect very deliberately because it goes beyond just being an acquaintance or associated with that person. It doesn't have to be from your home country. That would be ideal, but this is the real world. So get that in your head. Connect with someone on a more meaningful level. And this means work. Remember, you're not meeting this person every day, if at all. Because usually when we come to these different countries, we are living miles or kilometers, hours away from the closest person that we know or are willing to kind of interact with, right? But it's very important to be deliberate about connecting with someone who speaks English and understands or is open to understanding different cultural nuances, as well as connecting with a Japanese speaker, whether a native Japanese speaker or near native Japanese speaker, a Japanese speaker of Japan or whichever country you're in. Get somebody who is local, who can speak your language, can communicate with you to a certain level. It's going to be very, very, very helpful for you in the long run. And of course, maintain regular contact with them. It requires so much effort on the individual's part you would not even imagine, because most of the people in Japan here, they already have their families. Some are married, some have children, and so they may not see you as their priority. And of course, you can't blame them, right? And so you have to be the one trying to really make that effort to keep in touch with them. All right. Next on my list, which kind of ties into joining, some international society, is if you're a person of faith, find a church or some kind of organization that provides an atmosphere that helps to rejuvenate and refresh your mind, right? So some other things that you could do fall along the lines of a hobby. Maybe there's an art class, maybe there's a Japanese class, maybe that relaxes you, I don't know. Not just relaxes your body, but your mind and your spirit, and gives you some kind of energy. Maybe you want to learn Japanese cooking styles. Maybe you want to learn how to create ikebana floral arrangements. In Japan, you can join tea ceremony classes and so on. Very important. Get involved in something, regardless of whether you speak Japanese or not. Next on my list is to dedicate time to learning the language. A lot of people, especially if you plan to stay here beyond a year, a lot of people come their first year, they want to explore and travel and this and that and that. And then by the time the honeymoon period ends and they start to feel overwhelmed and so on, they can't connect with anybody, they don't know how to communicate, they don't really know anything basic. Learn some basic coping Japanese skills, or whichever country you're in. All right, it will help to keep you sane, right? Even if you don't like the language, like I often say, or if you think the language is not useful to you beyond the time or the country that you are living in, right? It's not about whether you like it or not. It will help you in the long run. Okay, and final on my list is to seek counseling from a trusted friend. A trusted friend, whether it is a friend from backyard, from your home country, or it's somebody that you newly developed a strong connection with. Don't be afraid to talk about what you are going through. And if you feel that you can't talk to a friend, or somebody from your church or somebody from some other organization, find a professional. There are professionals here. It might feel weird, strange, difficult for you to reach out, but don't sit back and allow yourself to be consumed. These are the coping strategies that I have. I hope they are beneficial to you. And what I will do is to remind you that there are many persons feeling the same way that you do. And very quickly, I'll go over them again. 1, connect with persons during your training and interviewing period before you leave your home country. 2, travel with that person or persons to the country you're going to. 3, maintain connection with those persons that you trained with or traveled with where possible. 4, join a group of like-minded or culturally relevant individuals before coming to Japan, ideally, that where you can get information. 5, deliberately establish talk time, FaceTime is better, with your family and friends back home. 6, join an international society in your local city. 7, find or develop a hobby of something that interests you or brings you satisfaction. 8, Try to connect with at least one English speaking individual or one Japanese speaking person who can communicate with you in English. Both would be better. 9. Join a church or other organization that provides an atmosphere that helps to rejuvenate and refresh your mind, body, and spirit. 10. Dedicate time to learning the language of the country that you are going to, whether you like it or not. And 11. Bonus. Seek counseling from a trusted friend or a professional. This is Stacy in Japan, and I hope this video in particular will be of use to you. Bye for now.